Good morning. Just because it says it's a class doesn't mean you have to act like students. Welcome to Digital Hollywood. I am so glad that you could join us. We are starting today with a TV Writers Masterclass, and you are very fortunate indeed because we have gathered some of the top writers, and we're going to give you an idea of what the current state of the industry is, what it's like to be a working writer, what it's like to be a writer in transition to new media. So we're going to keep it to a few questions at the end. If you have some questions along the way that don't get answered, write them down and we will open it up for that at the end. In the meantime, I'd like to introduce you to my panelists, who I'm going to give them a chance to introduce themselves individually, starting with Phil Bowman at the end.
Oh, first? Hello, everyone. I'm Phil, and my first job was writing for In Living Color. And I always tell people I got the job. I was living in the Bay Area without an agent. So it was possible back then. I think it's probably still possible. And from there, I co-wrote Don't Be a Menace to South Central While Drinking Your Juice in the Hood. And then that was successful. So we did Scary Movie, and that was successful. And I did a show on Nickelodeon called Cousin Skeeter, and some other shows and some other movies. And I'm very happy to be here.
Thank you, Phil. Now, Chad Culkin.
My name's Chad, and I write TV and movies and books and stuff primarily. I co-created a show called Bad Judge that's on NBC right now. I wrote a movie that did not do very well called The Incredible Burt Wonderstone. Some of my books there's a book actually that's made into a movie that's out right now called Men, Women, and Children. I wrote that book, not that movie. And I don't know, happy to be here as well.
You can follow Chad on Instagram /Chad Culkin.
Yeah, this is wrong. This spelling is wrong. If you want to see the best squirrel photos that anyone has ever taken, go on my Instagram, minus that R.
Rob Edwards.
It's just this name without the R. Sorry.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that stuff. That's me. So my name is Rob Edwards. I wrote The Princess and the Frog for Disney. Also worked on Frozen, Tangled, Wreck-It Ralph. Before that, I wrote Treasure Planet. I created a show called Out All Night with Patti LaBelle and Morris Chestnut and Vivica Fox. Worked on Fresh Prince, In Living Color, Full House. I've had a good time for about 30 years. Right now I have a website, robedwards.net, where I'm that I'm actually cannibalizing into 2 books about screenwriting. That's me. And also happy to be here.
Okay.
Matt Selman.
Hi. I've worked on one thing. So I just pretty much just The Simpsons for 18 seasons. So that's like kind of my deal right now. That was like really incredibly embarrassing award show speech where I made a very sexual joke in front of a 13-year-old presenter. But I did win.
And those 5 Emmys are his.
Yeah, those are cute.
Maxine Lapidus.
Good morning. I started as an actress and a stand-up, and the first job I got was on a little-known, short-lived show called The Ellen Burstyn Show in New York. And she said to me, "Well, Max, you can either eat pastry or you can be an actress." So I decided to eat pastry and become a writer. And I think I've excelled at that very, very well in my career. I'm one of the best pastry connoisseurs you will ever meet. And I've been very fortunate because I've written on a lot of hit shows. And right now I've started a new studio. It's actually an interactive studio called Storyverse. And we have a very big, exciting project, which you'll be hearing a lot about, coming out in 2 weeks. And I will tell you a little bit about that later in the panel. So thank you for having me.
And I'm Catherine Clinch. And I wrote for Hunter, Jake and the Fat Man, Knight Rider, Love Boat, Heart to Heart. In the 80s, I was the girl writing cop shows. There was no other. And this is, of course, a vintage picture of me because that's the girl who wrote those things. So, and I don't know how big those glasses are, but I think it was 2/3 of my face. So Let's start by talking about how do you think TV got so good all of a sudden? It went through a really kind of fallow period in the 90s, early double aughts, except for The Simpsons. So how do you think TV got so good?
I think.
Oh,
Go ahead, please. No, no.
Here, my theory is this. Because I remember, I forget what show I was working on at that time, and I think, what was it? Survivor had just come out, and it was just before reality TV started to swamp all the written stuff. And I remember saying to a bunch of fellow writers, like, we're ignoring, because all writers were like, oh, reality show, it's a fad, it's going to go, whatever. And I said, look, guys, we're ignoring the success of these shows to our own peril, because these shows are providing the audience with something that we're not. That there was this excitement that you never knew who was going to be on a show for whatever time. And then that first season, there was this, I think somebody got bit by I forget what, was it jellyfish or something like that, and then got carted off the show. And at the end of it, there was this great friendship that you saw all the way through. And then there was that great speech about the what was it, the snake and the rat. Anybody remember that? It was first season. Like, oh, there's two types of people, the snake and the rat. Well, the rat just walks right up to you and bites you, and the snake just hides in the grass. And you, my best friend, you're a snake, and I hate you, and I'm giving it to the rat, and you win the game. It's like, oh my God, it was the most spellbinding, TV show I'd ever seen. And I was like, this is great stuff. Why aren't we doing this? And it's been so long, so as you look at stuff like Walking Dead, where like any character could die at any time, and Scandal, and how to whatever, where it's like, whoa, murder, boom, whatever, all this stuff is happening. I think like, okay, finally we're getting it. That's what the audience wants. They're bored with 8 characters going through 10, 20 years, except in no.
Running series, running joke.
But I like the volatility of it, the fun of it.
I think too, it's cable and the internet. You have an era where original content is being created for cable that's obviously far edgier than you can do on network. But I think that it allows writers to kind of start to think about the way they want to craft stories in a way that's far more unique than it used to be. And we also live in an era where you can, on one screen, your computer screen, watch beheading videos, hardcore porn, whatever you want, right next to any network sitcom you want. So as viewers, I think people's it's kind of being broadened what we expect to see or what we can potentially see on a single screen. I'm not saying that's good. I'm not saying that's bad, but it certainly opens up what our palate is willing to accept. So you can now have a show like Walking Dead that's on basic cable where human heads are getting crushed with the butts of rifles and turning into bloody messes, and we're all fine with that. It's a hugely rated show.
Yeah, but that doesn't have a second screen option, so there's
no but you can watch it on your computer right next to porn or whatever you like.
No.
Whatever you like.
Was that a bad joke? Sorry. We must risk. So do you think, after what Rob said, do you think that reality programming has had a positive influence on what we're doing as creators?
Yeah.
Has it pushed us?
Well, I think what's interesting about it is that, like you were saying earlier, several people said, it's just forced us to think in different sizes and shapes of the box. And so when YouTubers can get hundreds of millions of hits putting on makeup, and people study their craft for 30 years and can't sell a show, or have written on great shows and won Emmys, and they're basically competing with somebody putting on makeup. It's a really interesting world, and that's where I'm sort of playing right now, is in that space where these short videos, you have 1 minute, 90 seconds, 2 minutes max to get people's attention and figure out how to kind of spin this into a deeper story or utilize different platforms simultaneously. And I think that's where everything's going. Millennials and those younger people are starting to consume entertainment very differently. So I think that really impacts the length of story we can tell and the depth of story we can tell. We have to think in new ways to do that.
Back to the first question, I was just going to say that because I don't want to talk about reality. But I think 1 hours have gotten really good. I think half hours have consistently been good for the last 20 years because there's always been Seinfeld or The Simpsons or Family Guy or South Park or The Daily Show. There's always been great comedy, but suddenly 1 hour because now you've got Steven Soderbergh doing The Nick and you've got Fincher doing House of Games.
House of Cards.
House of Cards.
And you've got
Game of
my
Thrones.
favorite show, Game of Thrones, and also the House of Game of Thrones. And, globalization.
That's Phil's next movie.
And the toilet explodes. And then, but the globalization of television, I think, really changed the game because suddenly you could sell 1 hours that might not stay on the air in America, but you could sell them in markets in Europe, and you could sell them in Asia, and you could sell them in South America, and you could sell them in Africa. And suddenly something that may not be a hit just in America, you could definitely finance very easily and make your money back. And that's how Game of Thrones really started, because at first it wasn't that strong on HBO. Suddenly it's a monster, but they didn't worry about it because it was already paid for in foreign markets. And I think that's been the real, that's really why David Fincher is doing his show, and Soderbergh and guys like that are in the game. And then, but comedy, which we're here to talk about, again, what the reason people watch this woman putting on makeup is because she's really funny. She's a star. So I think that's
It is spellbinding. And
I think she's very funny.
Yeah. But I mean, I think that's just, there's a reality aspect to that of, I think what I'm learning a lot about with millennial age too.
I'm sorry. You're talking about the
Talking about all
there's
those
two.
different.
but
There's
the
two.
one-
There's Barbie, who's
Right.
awesome.
Right. There's the funny one.
And then there's that other one, that
Who's just a very
teenage
serious
girl.
makeup
Very
person.
serious,
Right,
yeah.
right, okay.
And then there's a great Chola girl who does it, and there's a lot of different people. But I'm just saying
It's its own genre.
in their bedroom
That's
with
gonna be
bad
the,
lighting.
that's gonna be the
you know?
panel next year is the
Yes.
makeup girls.
Yeah, right,
Right.
exactly.
YouTube already has a huge digital, they're doing that. They're having big panels, and these kids get paid $1 million, to come and show up and speak and hold up a Pepsi in their bedroom. That's where we're at. It's wild.
Okay. So devil's advocate though, what is the difference between that and when we write scenes where a girl is putting on makeup in her bedroom and holding up a Pepsi?
Good lighting.
And
I
better
make
jokes.
money when we do it the other way. When we do it in her bedroom, we don't make money. We have no jobs, so that's important, right? What else?
All right, so let's talk about, since we started talking about foreign markets, let's talk about the influence of those markets on what we're doing. We've got format sales coming from overseas with Homefront, or Homeland, excuse me,
You're right.
and a couple of the other shows. And now we also have, Matt, you were saying that today they opened up China for The Simpsons?
Well, not today. Today there's a new thing called The Simpsons World that you can get through this app called FX Now, which is on computers and phones and smart TVs. I don't think it's super working yet, but that's like a streaming of every episode of the show with ads. And so that's like, but that's only in North America. It's only in America, actually, not even in Canada. But then also, I believe they are sending the show to China, which I don't know who has to translate those funny signs in front of the church and stuff into Chinese. That could be hard. But I don't know. I do think our show is a super unique ultra brand that, is phenomenally successful in all the other countries. And now it's interesting. I wonder if China will accept it or probably will.
Yeah.
So Phil Rose, I'm sorry, were you going to say something?
No, it's a phenomenon. It should go. What I wonder is that as you're talking about the app, because I think we watch, I don't know what TV I actually watch on TV other than football.
Football's so great.
Yeah, exactly. Football. It's okay, great, football. I'm texting my brother, whatever the scores, and
Football's just the best.
Yeah, but most stuff you wait a year or so, and then you just go, well, football too, right? It's big stakes. You never know what's going to happen. Guys get carted off. I tell you, it's the way of the future. Anyway, but you binge watch most shows, or at least I do. You talk about Homeland. I think I waited 3 years to watch Homeland, and I watched them all. The same with House of Cards.
Mhm.
I think I watched
Orange. I did that with Orange is the New
Yeah,
Black.
exactly.
I mean,
You know,
any Netflix kind of stuff that you
yeah.
And
And
that's-
are
I
we,
think that's-
well, with Bad Judge, did you consider that as you were
No,
continuing?
because it's still on network. And I think that's actually why ratings are plummeting is because most people don't want to invest in a show thinking that maybe it's going to get canceled after a season or even through its first season. They want to wait until there's a buildup of that media, binge watch it, and then they're on. It was like Breaking Bad.
Right.
Its ratings really didn't get crazy until they put the first 3 seasons on Netflix and everybody binge watched it. And then its 4th and 5th seasons were, enormous.
And that was conceived as a binge watchable show. Whereas like you will binge watch it. This show is going to take, whatever amount of, whatever its arc is going to be over years. And yes, you'll have to be patient. You'll have to watch it, which is where I think cable has just got they've got the game.
Absolutely.
wrapped
Well,
up.
especially Netflix. That's
Yeah.
a subscription model
Exactly,
or
'cause
HBO.
all they want is like, you like the show, you're going to talk about the show, we're going to win some awards, you're going to subscribe. Once we've got you, we don't care what the ratings are episode to episode.
Yeah.
We just want your show on our thing, Amazon Prime or, Netflix or whatever. We just want your show here. And then people are going to, some will be late to the party, some will be early to it, but they're going to watch all of them.
Because the way these companies make money is by owning libraries. And so if you can
Right.
create you only have to pay one time to make the show. And then if it creates cultural importance, people will watch it for 1 billion years. So that's incredibly valuable. And I think that speaking to what you guys were saying, the Netflixes and the HBOs and the FXs have all discovered that also if you give writers less money but more control, they are more happy and they will create a better product that
Yeah.
you can then show for
Absolutely.
1 billion
Like,
years.
Yeah, those 1090s are delicious. You
Well,
I
not-
mean, a little bit.
well, I was sort of saying more like a True Detective where, well, one writer, that's a pretty good deal for them. But
Right.
like,
Right.
he can write them all first, then shoot them, then edit them, like craft it, like tell one story. He doesn't have to make 200 CSI Miamis. And it's this valuable thing that is a huge, beautiful asset for HBO.
Right.
And as opposed to having to churn out 1 billion of bad judges, which is what NBC would want to do. They would want to make
Right.
200 bad judges. But that's much harder because
But it's the profit model is also changing because in a case of True Detective, what they're selling is the actual content, not the commercial space within the content. So getting a 100 episode catalog of a certain show that you can resell into syndication or make money back through your advertising just doesn't even exist in that model. It's saying, here's these 8 episodes we made of this thing that you have to watch because it is so culturally significant. And that is kind of a new model, I feel like, moving forward for sure. We're seeing it at Netflix as well.
I mean, it's also been really destigmatized for big Hollywood fancy people to work on teeny weeny little nobody networks, like, Steven Soderbergh on wherever the Nick is.
Cinemax.
Nick at Night.
I
Pun. Anyway.
I enjoyed it.
So let me ask you this. Do you think there's a potential of having a True Detective that's a comedy?
Yeah, there's potential for anything. I
Absolutely,
think.
yeah. I mean,
What's the dude who created Friends,
Kaufman Crane.
the one that's on Showtime or was on
Oh.
Showtime that's great
Right.
about
Right.
Kevin Bright?
no,
Um,
not Kevin,
no,
the
the
writer,
actor one.
David.
Oh.
No,
Episodes.
sorry, I'm
Episodes.
like an old Jew now. I can't
Episodes.
remember anyone's name.
Are you talking about
Episodes.
Joey?
Episodes.
So
Do you
David-
guys watch
David Crane.
episodes at all? I love episodes. That's exactly
right,
what you were
exactly.
talking
Yeah.
about, which is he was paid a lot less money to go to England and do that and had much more control.
Right.
And
He and his husband just write them in bed every week. I assume. That's what
what's
I-
wrong with that?
Nothing.
Okay.
But there's no staff,
But that's
cool.
I think that's really important for you
Yeah.
guys because even though these guys are highly paid and still working on very big budget shows, going back to the point of like for new writers or people who are trying to invent a way to cut through all the noise, I think what's really interesting is you have an opportunity to do that. If you can come up with a great idea and somehow put it into 2-minute pieces and get some backing for it, or get a friend who's a star attached, or get some advertising money attached, or get an inventive way that you can kind of make these things, it's just a really different playing field. And I think that's what we can talk till, kingdom come about how budgets have changed or how the business has changed, but who gives a shite? You know what I mean? I think the issue is, how do you get a job? And how do you make a franchise? And how do you make, get a way to get your toe in the door? And I think the nice thing is right now, there's really a way to do that for everybody. You're only limited by how you think. Really.
Yeah, I would say if you're trying to break in, I'm sure some of you are still trying to get in. The guys who did Annoying Orange, I mean, there's so many ways, so many simple ways, just a high concept and a funny idea that will suddenly generate, if it goes viral, then suddenly everyone who looks for funny writers are going to say, oh, look at this. This is very fun. Like when South Park came out, those guys got hired to write Dumb and Dumber Part 2 immediately because they were obviously funny and Hollywood grabbed them. And it's the same thing now with the internet. If I were starting out right now, I still have sketches from In Living Color. Like I know, like right now, Homie the Clown or Fire Marshal Bill would totally go viral. Yeah, exactly. And it could be either the most interesting man on the Dos Equis commercials, or it could be the lizards selling insurance, or the talking pig. So there's so many things that could just blow up and make you hot. And if you also are someone who had 1 million followers, then a network would just grab you, or a cable channel would just grab you and say, hey, can you tell your 1 million followers to watch this first episode? We're going to hire you and make you a writer on staff.
That's right. Absolutely.
Yeah. But I wouldn't say it's a meritocracy. I would say it's like a attention-tocracy or like Annoying Orange, was one of the few things homegrown things to super break out into like mainstream media, right? But has anything good come out of it? I don't know. And so I'm not asking you.
Well, but sometimes it's about eyeballs. I mean, it's TV.
Right.
TV's never really TV dramas. Maybe dramas are like whatever. TV half hours are more like look at the greatest. It's I Love Lucy. There's shows that people love. They just love. Oh, great! I like to laugh at this. The funniest guy at the bar or whatever. He's not great. He's not Shakespeare, but he's funny, and that's what we gravitate to in our half hour diet. And I always find it's great if somebody plugs into something that is unique enough, that's kind of fun enough that somebody is willing to kind of like text me or call me and say, hey, Rob, you got to check out this thing on the web. It's like, it's hilarious, and like my son will do that all the time. Like, oh, check out this guy. And then I'll watch 20 episodes, whatever, of some guy doing 5-minute sketches. I'm like, okay, this guy is brilliant. I was just talking to, Chris Rock wound up doing a webisode for some guy who was just like in the valley doing these 5-minute sketches and stuff. And he said, okay, this guy is a force to be reckoned with. He called me up and asked me to do one of these things. I couldn't say no because it's going to improve my own profile. So he went down and he did this thing. It was like 5 minutes and they were all very happy about it. I think that's the way it's going, which is kind of fun.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about how the experience doing shows like In Living Color, which was one of the first really successful primetime sketch shows in a long time, how does that translate into the new digital frontier of YouTube or other online content? I know Yahoo and Hulu and all the other companies are starting to do originals.
Well, In Living Color and Dave Chappelle and Key and Peele and sketch shows. In Living Color, we have like a 6-minute sketch. Now, often you'll see 3-minute sketches, which are perfect for the internet. So I would say in that regard, just shortening them and making them so internet friendly is one change that's happening.
Yeah. And look at, that's happening anyway, right? You search YouTube for Key and Peele and there's all kinds of stuff. The Jimmy Kimmel show, Fallon is basically like every single bit of it is on the internet in its own way. I think funny is funny. That's what's great about it all. Is that if you, like you were saying, if you were to take Homie the Clown, if you were to take any of those sketches and put them up,
Rick James would, Rick James did go viral.
Yeah, it would go instantly viral. Fun, and then that's it's the wild frontier, right? Because with all those successes are like, I'm sure, huge failures. Just guys, putting out stuff thinking, oh, this is going to be the funniest thing in the world. And
a lot of people in the gold, a lot of people in the gold rush staked their claim and didn't get anything, right?
Yeah, exactly. You just dig and dig and dig.
It's also interesting, like what you guys are saying is like now there's, if you were watching In Living Color, you'd be like, you don't know how long the sketch is going to be. But now anything you watch on the internet, you know how long it is before you watch it.
Yeah, right, exactly.
So you've already sort of made it. It's a bizarre technological thing that affects how comedy is produced
Yeah.
and written. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not going to watch a 6-minute sketch.
Yeah, right.
That's crazy. But like
Yeah.
3, all right.
3.5.
23-minute sketches, why not? But like the fact that you know how far through you are something with something, there's no mystery about where it ends. It's bizarre.
And how many times you do that?
Thing.
You check the little red logo. Like,
Sure.
is this over yet? Whatever. Get to it.
You check it a lot.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so Rob, you said funny is funny. And Phil Rosenthal did a documentary called Exporting Raymond,
Right.
which was about taking Everybody Loves Raymond over to the Soviet Union and enabling them to produce the Russian version of it based on US scripts.
Mhm.
Maxine, you've done that. What does the Cosby Show look like in Moscow?
Cosby.
Well, first of all, if you watched the Cosby Show with all white people, you would start to see what it looks like in Russia. You know, it's interesting because I think the Cosby Show was actually one of the better written family shows, like Roseanne, which I worked on for a long, long time. But the scripts were just very specific to a family. You know what I mean? It's like a lesson to your kids. And of course, what made that show so fantastic was Bill Cosby, you know? But there wasn't a Bill Cosby in Russia. And the process of casting in Russia is insane. I went and did 3 different series, and the casting process is like going to the Russian tea room. You have to meet people, you have to sit down with one actor at a time, tell them, compliment them, tell them you love all their work. It's a whole, like in America, we're like, yes, no, 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 get out, get out, get out. Yeah, okay, call back. You know what I mean? You can see 200 people in a day, literally. You can look at their resumes or see a piece of film. In Russia, that is just very bad form. So the casting process takes like a year. And by that time, who wants to watch the show anymore? You're exhausted, you know, you're like, but the process of, I think, taking good material, if it's good material and the material is universal, meaning with Raymond, like this is a good story. One of the funniest things I saw real quickly was Sony uses this piece of material to sell Raymond. So in the United States, you see a little clip of Everybody Loves Raymond, and he's sitting there next to his wife. And she's like, do you want I made you fresh meatballs or whatever. And then the mother comes in with a tray and she says, Ray, I made you that chicken you like. And you just see him getting so excited like this. And then he looks at his wife, and that's the joke, right? And then you see it in Arabic, and that same scene takes like 20 minutes. You know, I'm exaggerating, but it takes like 2 minutes because in Arabic, the rhythm of how people talk to each other and family and dynamic, and you see it in Russian, and it's a little bit longer, you know, so in each way that it's being translated, it's the same essence of the dynamic of a bossy mom or a dynamic between a mom and a wife, or 2 brothers who hate each other, love each other. So that's what's relatable, and the storylines are relatable. But the way it is translated has to be very well thought through. Otherwise, you can offend a culture, you can really sort of piss everybody off, and your one shot at kind of getting in, you know, can be ruined. So it's very interesting on rhythm, especially for comedy.
So my question there is then, why aren't they just doing this indigenously? Why aren't the Russian writers creating shows for Russia?
Well, they're starting to, very much so, but they had no history of creating TV shows. So they got Americans to come and teach them how to do it. And that's what they started with. The Nanny was the first sitcom ever done. Because again, it's Cinderella. It's like, you know, it's a fairy princess getting to live in the big house. And so that's very translatable to Latino culture or to Russian culture. And then all of a sudden, you know, they start to see how to make a show, you know, how to direct a show, how to work on set. And there were no studios for this. They were all radio studios. There was literally no place to film. So it's very interesting how this is one of our biggest exports is entertainment in this country. And it's really valued, you know.
So
Do they do
What-
it in front of
sorry.
audiences? I mean, yeah, right. Wait. Do they shoot in front of audience?
No, but it's interesting. Phil wanted to do it in front of an audience
Yeah.
when he first did it because he wanted people to laugh. That was such a key to the success here.
Yeah, right.
But
culturally,
it's,
they don't.
yeah. And also the way they
It's like
film
rude to
is,
laugh or something like that. It's like,
well,
like-
no, it's just, it's time, like the way they afford to do it. The budgets are so different. They almost storyboard it like a movie. So you're shooting 10 episodes on one day.
wow.
You're literally shooting all the bedroom scenes in 10 different episodes, all the living room scenes the next day. So the poor actors don't even know what episode they're in. They're just running down a scene, you know, with the director going, okay, you're upset when you walk in the door, you know? And so it's a really different way of being a factory there. That's the biggest difference, I think.
Okay, so when we start on a show, how far into the show are you before you know if it's going to be a hit or a miss?
Watching a show or writing a show?
Writing the show,
Oh, writing a show.
writing the, yeah.
From the first words, I'm like,
Yeah,
genius.
exactly.
This shit is
Exactly.
funny. Gold.
I agree. Same.
Yeah, exactly.
know.
Well, aren't you always? You're always. I think part of a writer, part of being a writer, is you're always in rooms where everybody thinks you're insane. You know, you're always saying like, "I think this will work," whatever, and everybody's like, "Whatever." Because I know that like in Living Color, they every day the executives would come in and say, "We're going to shut you down. This doesn't work. This show doesn't work. It's not funny. We're going to shut it down." And it was the assistant to one of the executives who was black who said, "I think it's funny," and that was it. They were like, "Okay, fine, we're gonna let you shoot it." It was supposed to be what was it? A 1 hour show. We shot an hour and a half, and they said even in the end they were like, "It's gonna be a half hour. Just get rid of it. You
And
know,
after
just
it
do
was
it."
a hit, they
And
wanted
then-
to
well,
make it 1 hour.
But it was like, yeah, exactly, yeah. And then it was like, well, it's too late. But when the audience came in to shoot it, they were like, okay, this is going to be like a funeral, and the audience was like, you know, black folk, right? Well, we're just jumping up and down, whatever. We're kicking stuff, you know. There's that kind of, you know, that kind of laugh, you know. And they thought we had paid the audience to laugh. And I was like, no, this is actually funny, guys. This is, you know, you guys don't really get this, but whatever. We had the same exact thing on Fresh Prince. We're like, okay, this doesn't work. And it was Lily Tartikoff. It was Brandon Tartikoff's daughter who said, "Daddy, don't cancel this show. I love this show. If you cancel it, I'll hate you forever." And he said, "Well, you know, my daughter wants you to be on the air, so I guess, you know, we're going to keep you around." And we're like, that little girl, she was like 10 years old. Like, that little girl is the whole reason why we're here. And it took half a season before the show actually caught on. You know, you look at it now, it's like, oh, Will Smith, that was golden. Like, no, it was like, we were, you know, terrified all the way through. So I really don't think you know. I think the writers know. The writers are like, we believe in the show. We're telling stories that we like. We're making each other laugh in the room. And then it's just, I hope the world agrees with us.
But don't you think so much of it's casting too?
Yeah.
A little
yeah.
bit for
I
sure.
think like that's an enormous part of it. You know, you have seen really
Yeah.
good scripts get sunk
Oh, yeah, exactly.
or vice versa, right?
I'm right in the middle. Go ahead.
I would just think for writers starting out, and if you're writing for this question, front load it. I volunteer with military veterans and who want to be writers. I always tell them the first page, if you're writing comedy, it has to be funny on the first page and really the top of the first page, and every single page, really the first 5 or 10 pages of your script, and if it's a webisode, the first few minutes, the first few seconds, you have to grab them immediately with something really funny. And a gentleman yesterday was saying that even the image in the thumbnail, they won't even read the text. If a photograph is really funny of a cat falling off of whatever that might be, you know, grab them with the image and then they'll pay attention to it. But if you don't grab, especially in Hollywood, but even in new media, if you don't grab them immediately, there's so much else to do and so many other scripts to read. So front load everything you write or produce so that you immediately grab them by the throat and then don't let go and then keep making it funny and then you have a hit.
I'm sure you guys have gone through on staffs, right? When you're staffing up at the beginning of the year and you're reading scripts, and there's always that conversation. Like on Studio 60, we were like, how many pages do we have to read, Aaron? And you know, it was like, oh, you have to read 10. It's like, can we just read 3? You know, we know it in 3. You know, and really you do. You know it. The first paragraph, you go, oh crap, you know, and it's terrible. And the way it resonates is that as you're making the decision, as you're clicking through the cable thing, how many, you know, it's like it takes forever for the next channel to come up. You give it about a half of a second, and then you click, click zombies, vampires, and whatever. You'll stop, for those, but everything else you just kind of discard.
Right. Give me
You
the
know.
train wreck
Yeah.
up front.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Give me the boom, like go right to it. Whatever you do best,
Mhm.
right on that first page.
Yeah.
Above the fold.
Okay, so Matt,
You what?
the longevity of The Simpsons.
Mm-hmm.
You've been there since 1997.
Sure.
How has it sustained? What's the magic formula, secret recipe, secret sauce?
I don't know. It's it's like the world changes, but the show doesn't. The characters don't change. So the characters are. We're unique. We're the last great, undying brand TV show of the '90s, and probably there won't be another massive thing like this ever again because of all these conferences. And because we get asked this question a lot, and it's like, oh, it's because it's a family and you can relate to the family and they love each other, but they're troubled. And yeah, I mean, that's part of it. I just think it's a world people love. It's characters they love, and it's a world they love, and it's a big world. And we can, even though the characters don't age, the world changes, and we can keep reflecting the world back to the world, our world on watch Simpsons World. And I don't know. I think that's just the main thing. Also that everything else, they haven't been able to come up with something for Sunday night at 8 that people like more is a big part of it. And we work hard to try to make it good and funny and relevant and all the time. We work all year with 1 million writers to really just try to make sure, everything is as packed with, comedic value as we can. And I think people sense that like we really are passionate about excellence. Also, we don't get network notes. We don't get network notes is the reason. That's, all that other stuff is bullshit. It's just, just us making it as funny or as sweet or as heartwarming or as dumb as we can with no one telling us, second guessing us, except for ourselves.
So how far along was the show before the network said you don't need notes, just keep doing what you're doing?
They never had notes. That was the deal.
Wow. How did
Jeez.
that come about?
I don't know.
James L. Brooks.
Jim,
Right.
Okay. So let's talk about, because that has an enormous merchandising line.
yes.
Possibly more valuable than the actual initial comedy assets.
The show is
itself.
like a infomercial for the junk.
So how involved are you with all of those digital extensions or the tangible merchandise?
Well, it is fun. It's fun managing a brand, guys. It's like you get to be part of things you wouldn't get to be a part of. So we wrote a theme park ride for Universal, and we got to see what to watch as they transformed Back to the Future of the ride into the Simpsons ride, and like with hard hats and go in there and see how a ride is made, and that was really fun. And we got to name the foods for the crappy Simpsons food court at Universal. And we get to write tweets, we get to write little video games, we get to write big video games. And then people down the totem pole have to write like the Monopoly Simpsons stuff, and it's the brand is as big as we can make good, but people always, we're just the last giant bloated whale of this stuff. And so it's for us, it's fun because you're not just, you're working on the show, but then you get to like stick your head into all the parts of corporate America that are kind of, you get to see them from an interesting perspective where you don't have the bad parts of being in a corporation, but the fun parts of just being silly and taking a silly brand and creating other silly stuff out of it.
So if you were starting from scratch now and wanted to create the next Simpsons,
I would kill myself.
but on your way out, halfway through the note, what would you do? How would you do it?
I don't know. I mean, I would ask these guys. I mean, I just think like you have to have, if you have a voice and a take on the world the way Jim and Matt and Sam did, and Alan, Mike, Gene, and Mike Reese did, 25 years ago, that's unique and connects with people. If you're lucky enough to have one, I know I don't, but I'm good at maintaining someone else's. You just have to do that.
Yeah. But wasn't a big part of it, Matt Groening just saying this is my family. I bet it's like other people's families. You know, it goes to like what Maxine was like. It's casting. It's like everybody kind of has. Well, everybody knows a dad that's like that in some way. You know, not that extreme, but everybody kind of like, okay, dad. You know, and kids, you know, like there is that thing. I know I'm raising two Barts. You know, that
I have one.
that it just resonates in a certain way. So you can kind of kick back and watch the show and just say, okay, yeah, I get these people. It's cool that it's got this level of abstraction, and then off you go.
But I think it's
It seems like that's where
virtually,
you start is honesty.
I think it's virtually impossible though to set out saying I'm going to create the next Simpsons.
Yeah, right.
Right.
It-
You have to be truthful.
Something like
Yeah.
that, as you're saying, you know, it happens once every 25 years or something. I think it's a more valuable thing to start out and say, what is the kind of story I want to tell? What are the characters I like? What entertains me? And then you just do that. And hopefully, I mean, usually other people will be entertained by that as well. And then you put it on TV and you hope you get a good time slot and you're not up against something bad that's going to crush you every week. And maybe you get to keep doing it for a little while, you know, and then eventually, you know, you become the Simpsons if you're that kind of 1 in a million show that hits the zeitgeist just right and all the things kind of line up perfectly. But in the meantime, you can be creating other shows and doing all kinds of stuff and like making a decent living without having to create the Simpsons again, you know?
Well, but I can't
feel
tell
like-
you how many.
Luck
Yeah.
has so much to do with it too, because
Yeah.
if Fox hadn't
Sure.
been created that year, or maybe it was one of the first.
Tracy Ullman, and that was the
Right.
thing,
Yeah.
like there were other cartoons. Remember, there were other cartoons in the Tracy Ullman show, and then the one that kind of broke out was, you know.
But I can't tell you how many times I have heard studio executives say, listen, bring me the next Simpsons.
Yeah, right.
Well,
So
yeah.
it's out there as, you
And
know.
don't give me any notes.
Well, Family Guy, you know.
No,
I think Family Guy is a Xerox. You know.
I do too.
Well, and all the, you know, Family Dad, you know, Family Guy, American Dad, and you know, Cleveland show.
But I think Family Guy maybe kind of started out as like a bad copy of The Simpsons. But then once they found their rhythm and started doing what they thought was funny and
Yeah.
different and
Yeah.
that was weirder and darker and, you know, the show, you know, earned its super success, you know,
Right.
by virtue of taking what The Simpsons started and going in their direction and putting it in their voice, which, you know, which is a more, again, it's like, what's the voice? Like, there are very few great, I'm sure there are exceptions to this, but most great comedy things or drama things have a voice, even if it's 20 people or one person doing it. There's like a tone and a uniqueness to it.
That's also, I think, why so many stand-ups, you know, were the first sort of wave of a lot of these comedies, whether it was George and Gracie or, you know, Seinfeld. You know, there's a history, Milton Berle, you know, there's just an ongoing history of comics who honed their voice for 15 years. And, you know, when I was a stand-up, I really got to watch that process. And that's how I met Roseanne and Ellen DeGeneres and, you know, a lot of the people that I wound up working with and writing for. And it's an incredible thing to watch someone find their voice and to understand that the way they tell a joke and that they connected, and then you can connect to perpetuating that voice or that character. But seeing that occur is really something. And I encourage, you know, I think we would all encourage you guys to do what you do to find your voice, whether it's working with an improv group or whether it's putting up little videos or writing spec scripts or writing cartoons. I mean, I think your point of view when you're writing a spec script to be seen, how you see the world and how you tell a joke and how you know, position things is what we're all looking for.
Mhm.
Something that's a little fresh and different, that's authentic to how you tell a story, right?
Can I ask how many
I
of
think
you
that loops
are
back
okay.
around to, I'm sorry, the web conversation is that I think that there's a thirst for that.
Yeah.
That everybody's looking for, like, what is that new voice? Where
Right.
is it? Who's funny now?
Yeah. Can I ask how many of you are comedy writers?
Not many.
And how many of you are like producers and like,
Mhm.
okay.
And drama writers? How many drama writers? Uh-huh.
Cool.
People doing short form, new media? Okay, interesting. So it's a nice melange.
And some overlap. Yeah, right. And some comedy producers.
Okay.
And
so-
what have we not talked about that you guys are dying to know right now?
All right, so I have a question though for Chad. Okay,
Hmm.
because you've got a character at Extremes and you're on network in the early part of the evening.
That's right.
How far can you take a character at that time of night now? And how much
Well,
farther do you think you can go?
Talking about what we were saying earlier about putting all your kind of first stuff, front loading all your episodes, the first image of our pilot episode is our main character, who is a lady played by Kate Walsh, kind of in her bed with her butt up in the air, hungover after a long night of partying. That's the first thing you see of the show. So, I mean, that kind of not only sets the tone for what we're trying to do, obviously, but I mean, that kind of gives you some idea of how far we can take it. It is network TV. There are standards and practices. You have to obviously not say certain things or show certain things. But, you know, I think you can still be mildly edgy on network TV, I think that's the question you're asking.
Yeah. And because also I want to ask Phil, with Scary Movie, that obviously started a huge trend that it kind of died out after the airplane movies in the 80s. How do you take all of the skills of writing TV and sketch comedy and then translate it into what in some respects is actually a 100-minute sketch, a parody?
It's really, parodies are just one sketch after another sketch. But I would say, we were talking about network just a minute ago, and even, I want to say maybe 8 years ago, Family Guy had they walk that edge so well. They had a joke where he's watching Wheel of Fortune, and all the letters were up. My, Harry, blank, UNT. And I mean, I don't know if you know, it's Fox, but that's as
You can get away.
cable. And then it's like, and then it was like, I'd like to solve the puzzle. My hairy aunt. And then the son says, "You were close, Dad."
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty edgy. That was 8 years ago.
You have to imply the profanity on network TV instead of actually doing it. But yeah, you can get away with some stuff, I think. And animation too allows you a lot more than live action does. But
Yeah, because a lot of times they don't see it until it comes back from Korea.
Right.
Yeah.
Like right before.
Okay, so Maxine, can you tell us about Storyverse? And I'm going to try and set this up so we can show your trailer.
Yeah, just, I thought this was very interesting because I, like everybody up here, had worked in half hour, an hour, and written movies and all that stuff. And about 15 years ago, I started working in short form with a company I tried to start at the time called Voxy, which was short material for teen girls. And so all this time, I've been, kind of proselytizing that you can make good stuff for the internet. And my partner right now, Hillary Carlip, is an author, and she's written 4 books. She's been on Oprah, and she wrote a rom-com book. And it's called Find Me, I'm Yours. And it's coming out in 2 weeks. But what we did is we decided that we wanted to make all this other stuff at the same time. And we wanted to up our game to be able to sell the movie rights to this book. And I'm a director also. So we decided we would create that
Amir, you have to check
platform.
this out.
Whoops.
If you believe in
stop
destiny
for one
like
sec.
I do, and you
We would create this platform to launch all these other platforms and businesses, in essence. And so from these other platforms come TV series and other books and all kinds of ancillary creative content. So this is just a little trailer that's up right now on the site, and it's going to launch in 2 weeks. So I just thought you might want to see this because it's kind of a new business model. Okay.
Cool.
Come here, you have to check this out.
if you believe in destiny like
Sounds good though, doesn't it? Sounds interesting, doesn't it? Yeah. Really compelling shit.
Oh, okay. It's your second screen.
Okay, keep talking. Yeah,
It's on your second screen. So.
keep
It's on
talking.
your second screen. I feel like this is it. I think you should know. Not really.
No, see, it's not clicking. All right, what?
I mean, the point is, guys, just save your money. Like, I've done well, but I drive a Subaru. You don't need to live. You're not going to be earning it forever. And it's like, obviously, you want to, and pay. You're going to pay people. Pay childcare well. Don't cheap out on the nannies because they're looking after your kids. But stuff like cars and like jewelries and second houses. Don't get divorced. That's really expensive. I mean, the advice I give to young writers while they fix this is, I say bank it and spank it, which is you're only probably going to get lucky 1 or 2 times at best to make some serious dough. And so save the money and don't spank it means don't get divorced. You cannot afford to get divorced. And if you get super rich, then you can afford to get. You can't.
Do you know Willie
I'm just
Nelson's
vamping
joke
now.
about divorce? You know Willie Nelson's
You're
joke
doing
You guys
about,
have any other thoughts on that area?
Willie Nelson has a joke about divorce, and he says, "Why are divorces so expensive? Because they're worth it."
Oh, that's sour. Oh, no. Our wives are great.
I think what you'll have to do is go to www.findmeimyours.com, and then you can watch it because we're having some technical difficulties evidently.
Isn't it on the second screen? It seems like it's on.
Find me,
It's
I'm
like-
yours.
if you go to
No,
your
apostrophe. Just findmeimyours.com, and you'll be able to see it.
Do you have any stickers like that,
I
Maxine?
have some stickers.
Amir, you have to check
That's
this out.
really
Yes.
Stickers is old media, folks. I gotta say.
Yeah. No, we're bridging. We're real world and
Does anyone have a
He's
question?
virtual.
Does anyone have a
Rob's going to
question?
fix it.
I'm a Mac.
Oh, good Lord.
There we go.
Mac, you just go, do it right.
I'm a PC.
All right, what should we take the questions?
Yeah.
Let's take questions.
Your
Take
second
questions.
screen there, right?
No.
You're on the right computer.
I'm on the right computer. It's
I
just not
feel it.
popping up. All right, let's talk about questions. Please do not pitch a project to anyone. Please, if you are going to say that, let's assume you all say thank you and appreciate them being here. Focus on the question you want to ask. Yes?
Can I just give a specific thank you? I just want to say I look at all of you and I see hours of television that give me a lot of happiness in my life.
Are you saying we're old?
I want to
You're saying we're ancient,
My
aren't
show's
you?
only been on for 6
In
episodes.
case you
Come on.
don't survive to the end of the panel, we just want to let you know.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, sweetie.
We all keel over.
actually. What was it like for you as a writer, having other writers adapt?
Specifically with, you're talking about men, women, and children? Well, that was Jason Reitman and Aaron Cressida Wilson, who I both think are fantastic. And that book specifically is a little weird. It's about junior high kids and how cell phones and the internet are changing the way they interact socially, sexually, all this kind of stuff. And it's a pretty racy book. So I was curious actually to see how they do it, but I've liked Jason's stuff for a long time. So I couldn't have been happier with how the movie turned out. And I mean, it was cool. It was a cool process just to see it made.
Next, yes?
Questions for Chad. When you wrote and created Bad Judge, did you have a star, celebrity, or cakewalk writer in mind?
No, it was actually how that process worked. This is one of the first times I've ever just kind of like taken a job and instead of like creating my own idea and going out and selling it and trying to get on TV. I did that for a long time. I made some pilots and none of them ever got picked up to series. So I kind of said, you know what? I'm going to take somebody else's idea that seems like it's set up well. And I did this past season 3 of those. And I was just like, I'm going to try this as a strategy and see if it works. And it ended up working. But Bad Judge started as an original idea by Anne Heche. And then she took it to this production company called Gary Sanchez, which is Adam McKay and Will Ferrell. They had their deal at Universal. And I came in to kind of help shape the world, add some new characters, write the pilot, sell the show, all of that. And it moved forward from there. So this specific project was always kind of a very collaborative one, more so than I was used to in the past. And it's been great. It's been a pretty fun experience. So I'm sorry, the question you had though was Kate Walsh. She came in later. The pilot was already written. The show was sold. It was not quite picked up to series at that point. She read the script, really liked it, came in, and then her involvement got the green light or the series order. Or I'm sorry, the pilot order. And then later the series order came. But she's been fantastic. She's super talented, funny, all that stuff, you know. It's been great.
Are there any questions not for Chad?
Sorry.
Yes, green dress.
I have a question for all of you, really. As like I'm a student, how did you get started in your careers? Like, how did you even get into it? You know, what school did you go to? What did you study? Did you even go to school? Like, did you have to? Or
Keep it,
what was your big break? Like, how did you?
keeping in mind that most of us got our start a while back and the things have changed. Who wants to take that?
Real quick, I just want to say this. I know this was me. I know. I'm sorry. But I would say that like a lot of people have asked me that, like, what was your big break? I don't ever consider that I really had one. Like I went to film school. I beat my head against a brick wall for like 6 or 7 years trying to get an agent. Eventually got one and started getting like tiny jobs that were not like I got laid off from my real job and I was like, oh crap, now I'm gonna have to get another one of these real jobs that I hate. And then I was able to kind of sell a cable pilot for, you know, I think it was my first one was like 30 grand. After agent, manager, lawyer, and taxes, you bank about 10 of that grand.
Chad, they think that's a lot.
Yeah. But so it's like you at least for me in the beginning, it was like I was just able to scrape enough out to not have a day job. And that just kind of kept happening a little while. And then you make a little more money and a little more money. But I never ever felt like this is it. I'm a writer. I still kind of don't, you know, you're always like hustling to just stay afloat.
Yeah,
At
I think
least
that
for
is sometimes the danger in that question is you think that, hey, great. Well, once you got in, then it was like, you know, clovers and rainbows. And like, no, it's every couple of years, you're reintroducing yourself to the market.
Yeah.
You know, my friend Dan Fogelman, who wrote Crazy Stupid Love, he writes a spec a year, you know, and he was just plodding along. He wrote Tangled and Cars and stuff like that, and not happening. He'd also written Fred Claus, which was great. It got made, and then but it boomed or whatever. It kind of tanked his career for a little while. And he says every year he just kept writing and writing and writing. And then Crazy Stupid Love just happened that Stephen Carell needed a movie. It had just fallen off of another movie. They needed to get something going really quickly at Warner Brothers. They bid the crap out of his movie, and I think it made, I don't know, $1 million, $750,000, something like that. And then very quickly thereafter, he sold Las Vegas and something else, each for like $1.5 million. And so people say, like, oh, great. You know, what a wonderful story about how he broke in. But like every year for 20 years, he's been writing specs and trying to get stuff going and just fail. And then, oh, good, I'm ready. You know, so you are always, you know, trying, you know, knocking on somebody's door.
Yeah, I was just going to say, you know, but again, I keep coming back to the opportunities that are there now that weren't there when I graduated from drama school, you know, Carnegie, and you know, you had to go with an 8x10 and go to auditions. Now everybody can put their film up on casting sites. They can make, like I hired a great writer from her website. She wanted to be a late night writer, and she had created a website that had all these bits and jokes and just put up a lot of material. And the first thing on it, it just cracked me up. It said, when you went to her website, her name is Jen, it went, hi, Mom, because in her mind, that was the only person who was going to look at her site, was her mother. And that killed me.
Awesome.
And then I hired her as an assistant, and then she got onto The Onion. You know, she worked with me and got to work out some stuff and use what I was doing as a, as a level. And then she got into The Onion. So, but she was incredibly prolific. This is just a year ago. And I think if you're making little movies or you're making little, you know, you have the ability, your website is as attainable as the Disney website. All you need is that address. And if it's hip and it's cool and it's good artwork and it's interesting and you have some material up there, send people. You know, there's nothing stopping anyone from finding you. You're on the same playing field in a lot of ways. And I think that's what's scary for the studios right now. That's what scares them about Netflix and Amazon. And, you know, Amazon makes a pilot, our friend Jill Soloway's pilot, Transparent. You know, yeah, it was great, wasn't it? And she had to still go through this oddball situation at Amazon, which is they gave you the money for the pilot, but then we're going to see if people actually watch it, which is really different than one guy saying no or yes at a network. But it was like, are people going to watch it? And they just threw it up there, and there's your marketing. So it's always, you're always being judged. You're always being, you know, in and out. Can I get to the next level? Always, as everybody's saying, as Phil was saying too, and Chad, but you have to, you know, you have to help yourself. You're your producer, you're your star, you're your advocate, you're your agent for your entire career. Unless you're lucky enough to be on a hit show for 18 years.
No, I mean, I'm the anomaly, but you're 100% right. I mean, no matter what level you're at, like the top or the bottom, you are a salesperson. You are a salesman or woman, and you are selling yourself. And if you don't have a job, you're selling what you have for people to buy it. If you're on a staff, you're selling to your bosses. You're selling to the network. Yeah. the biggest screenwriters in the world have to sell. I mean, it's you know, there's a real Willy Loman element to it, and some terrible writers who are great salesmen, great personalities, done very well, and a lot of weirdo introvert geniuses, you know, never saw the light of day, because unless they got hired on The Simpsons, because you know, there's that element of it where you don't really think about. It's just you have to present your material, and I mean, the show business is really, here's what it is. It's, will someone give you money for something? That's
exactly.
At the end of the day, and then maybe can that be good is part B.
Well, I'm going to share a different perspective because it's totally irrelevant, but kind of applicable to what you're doing. I was in the Directors Guild training program in New York and realized I hated being on the set, so I probably didn't want to be a director. But I met this guy who came to meet the cinematographer, who later won an Oscar for that. And he said, "What do you do?" And I told him I'd written a script. And I told him the story in a sentence. And he said, "Call me when you get to the coast. I think I know somebody who'll hire you." So I came to the coast. I followed a boy. There were other things. And I called him, and that was operable, because he introduced me to the guy who indeed introduced me to my then agent at William Morris. And so within 5 months, I was a signed client at William Morris, and a month later, I was writing network TV. And I say that because the easiest thing in the world to do is the one 99% of the people miss. Follow up. If someone says, "Here's my card, keep in touch," keep in touch. Follow up, send a thank you note after meetings. Start to build your identity as nice person, good writer, not a stalker. Okay? And seriously, the follow-up is huge, I think. So I'm going to try this.
Also, the talent is falls into that. I mean, I would argue
Yeah, right.
our
It helps
evidence.
if you don't suck.
I mean,
Yeah, the script was decent. Let's see if this is going to work.
Yeah, right.
No.
If you believe in destiny, like I do,
That's all I'm
and
hearing is that one line. If you believe in destiny.
We'll do it in public.
If you believe in destiny, go to www.findmeimyours.com.
destiny is a big theme in movies, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay, so who hasn't? Yes, you have a question?
So here's my idea.
No.
Needs breaking down. My mind thinks in terms of comedies usually, and I know we're talking a lot about straight up comedies and sitcoms, but how do you distinguish, like, are you in a different mindset when you're writing for that genre or that style?
Not really.
I don't either.
If that's your tone, if that's your voice, then go. Yeah, that's
Feels
what you
like
should
the
do.
project sort of predicates
Yeah.
the form.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Whether it's going to be a 4-camera sitcom or a single camera sitcom or a dramedy, sort of more, I mean, from my perspective, or if you're writing, the voice of the character or how you get into it, or, I think, and also where your contacts are. If your contacts are in drama, probably you'll try to produce a drama before you produce a comedy. But a lot of it is how you hear and what you're passionate about, that I think makes you, again, what can you sell? Are you a good salesperson? And if you can visualize it and really describe it quickly, as you were saying, in one line, and bring them into that, then a lot of times they'll work with you too on where it should fit, because I think there's more room now to not fit, which is great, but you still have to think about how you write, how you tell a story, right?
But
Are you-
I guess what I meant is, have any of you have experience doing straight up drama and comedy, and have you then sort of had to merge the two? And is there a different process for you?
Well, I think all good writing is dramatic, right?
Yeah.
And some of the most dramatic shows are incredibly funny, and some of the most funny shows are incredibly emotional. So I don't know what dramedy means. Like, whether or not, Sopranos is like the funniest show, right? It's so
No, yeah,
it's
exactly.
dark,
Yeah, no, it
crazy
is.
stuff. But
What
like,
is it? True Blood is a comedy. I know when we were working on Studio 60 with Aaron Sorkin, it's like in every scene you're working, you track it through both ways. okay, does this work dramatically? Is this real? And then is it funny? Is it going to, are we going to get a couple of laughs out of the scene? And it's the same anywhere. Princess and the Frog, we're sitting there going, is it real? Is it funny? And
Also, sadness is funny.
Yeah, sometimes sadness is really
People
funny.
getting kicked in the nuts is funny. Like disaster is funny.
Yeah, and you
Which is
want
how
to
you present it.
exactly. You want to have a balance. You want to have darkness to the light and light to the darkness, right? You don't want to just go whatever, just goofy all the way through. You want it to have some heart in the end, at least. And at the same time, you don't want something so dark and bleak that it's just relentless. I think it's, especially now as we're talking about original voices and stuff, that should be it. It should bring whatever it is you can do. What are your samples now? What are your,
here we
what
go.
kinds?
Tony, don't.
Okay, I'm sorry. Don't, sorry. Yeah.
Okay.
But no. But yeah, if, you'll find the shows that are conduits to what it is you do best, and then that's it. If you're, when you're not funny, everybody knows, whatever. The jokes just don't track. On paper, it's just deadly. I mean, I'm sure everybody's read stuff where you just think, oh God, this guy thinks he's funny and this is terrible. But who knows? Sometimes somebody else might read it and say, oh, I thought it was hilarious. It's just go with what you sing your song, and then get out there, see if anybody claps to it.
Next question, yes?
What was your biggest learning lesson and on any type of product or creativity that you never thought you would have?
That's a good question.
Biggest lesson.
Do you have a good answer?
Getting fired?
Yeah.
Seriously, I got fired all the time for a while because I was a bit of a know-it-all, and wanted to prove that I was right. And I think that's a very myopic vision as a writer when you're working on a staff with people. You want to engage everyone and have the best idea win. And I think, that's a staff is really about people you want to hang out with and play with. And if you're a showrunner, it's the people you want to spend 18 hours a day with. And you really learn that when you're in a room, because you really have to work together. And if somebody's a drag, it's no fun. You want them out of there, And there are a lot of ways people could be a drag, but for me, that was a really
So did you have
big,
one super rude awakening that was like, oh God, no, I have to change? Was there one big one?
I think it was just I felt I was really right about something.
So wait,
Which is
so
often.
You haven't learned the lesson.
I've not learned it.
On the
That's
drive
why I
home
have
with
my
the
own
Beacon
company
boxes.
now. The lesson is I needed to be an entrepreneur. That was my lesson. Don't work with these schmoes. They're idiots. They're all idiot, right. That's all.
I'll show you all. I love it.
Yeah.
Took
Yeah,
me
I mean-
30 years, but
Yeah.
Okay, couple
But
of,
to piggyback onto that, I do think that's great advice. Like, get out of your own way.
it's
That so many times, you're just sitting there, and yeah, you do feel like you're right, or you feel like you'll get a note. The first note we got on Princess and the Frog, Andrew Stanton, we're sitting there at Pixar. Andrew Stanton says, he's looking at his pad. He goes, I'm trying to figure out what I hate about your movie the most. And I'm like, oh my God, with Rouge, whatever. Like, he just killed me. You take it so personally. And he said, no. What I'm saying is, and I don't even know if he actually said that. That's just the way I heard it. Like, I hate Rob Edwards. But and I think he was just prioritizing his notes and just saying, okay, what is the biggest problem with what we just saw? And it's always wrong. You're never sitting there going, oh, it's perfect, whatever. Even when it's perfect, you wind up with a piece of casting changes, or you lose a location or something like that. And you got to rewrite it. So you're always sitting there with an imperfect thing until it actually gets on the screen. And then even then, we'll just sit there and
It's still imperfect.
like, hey guys, I have some notes on the movie that we just made, and so you need to get, I think it's important. Yeah. Get out of your own way. Just realize it is part of the process. Everybody is pushing and trying to make it better. And the notes that you're getting are not personal. They're just, in good faith and trying to get stuff going. When you write a spec and it doesn't, and that person that you're giving it to doesn't say, I love you, it's wonderful, so what? Keep handing it out. Eventually, you got 1,000 at bats in this industry. If you don't let the strikeouts get you down, then you're, at some point, who knows when, but at some point something's going to happen.
I'd say the
Third
big-
row.
Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No,
Go ahead.
no,
No,
no.
go
It
ahead.
was a good
Go ahead,
question.
go ahead,
Let
go
the
ahead.
guys.
No,
Chad wants to talk.
No. It was nothing. It was just a secret.
Yeah.
Exactly. Something's going to blow you.
It wasn't. I was gonna say the biggest lesson that I learned, and kind of early on, was that you have to kind of divorce yourself from the things you write, because eventually, if you're gonna get paid for it, someone else owns it now. In almost every case, it will be rewritten by someone else, and it will become something that you never intended it to be. And you kind of have to be okay with that if you want to make a living doing this, at least in TV and movies. Books, not the case, but you can't really make a living usually. Sorry.
I would say a good lesson that I learned was I used to do stand up and we'd all write the first funniest joke. But a great lesson was don't go with the first joke. Stay on it and write a couple of more different punchlines. And I love Dave Chappelle. And I always find that there's 1,000 comedians out there who tell the same joke with the exact same direction. And he kind of goes off in this other direction. And that's what's so great about him is don't go with the first joke. Write a few more on the same setup and come up with a few punchlines and try and find a punchline that no one else would write. And then that's your joke.
Okay. Third row.
My one really quick, and it's sort of a contradiction, because the more you think about it, the harder it is to do. But is like just like hide your fear.
Hide your fear. Yeah, right. Exactly.
Because people don't want to deal with someone who's like scared shitless all the time, or super insecure, or just is feeling they don't deserve to be there. I mean, like, just if you ever, whatever opportunity you get, just take a magic pill that makes you think you, without becoming too confident. Don't take a magic pill where you just, without even like a non-verbally just say, like, I deserve to be here. There's a little bit of mantra, guys. I deserve to have this meeting. I'm worthy to be in your presence. I'm going to be helpful to you. Like, just because people can sense when you're scared shitless, and it is like a kind of a creativity killer for the people that have to deal with you, even if you've got like valid stuff. You know what I'm saying? So just like you don't talk too much, but just project an energy of just, I deserve to be here. That's all.
And they want you to be right. They want you to bring them something that they can monetize and be a huge success for their career.
Because they're terrified.
Yeah.
Underneath it all. Yeah. When they're giving the note, they're like, I don't know, this could work, or it could destroy the thing. And
unless they saved enough money.
There's a whole tier of executives in Hollywood at network and studio level. Their entire job is to give us money. That's their entire job, to buy things from us. And all they want to be able to do is say, look, boss, look what I bought. It turned out all right. That's it. So, I mean, there's a certain amount of money that just must be given to you. All you have to do is stand in line and say, as you're saying, I deserve to be in this line. Where's my money? That's it. That's the whole job.
I mean, it's not the line between like cocky and terrified, like just sort of calm. It's like hearing into a yoga session. Calm, present,
yoga, man. I tell
and calm, present, and confident, and just happy and positive. That just project that in any. This applies to every job in the universe, actually.
Yeah.
So, but
exactly.
it's hard
like
to
the
do.
Quarterback, the quarterback in the fourth quarter. You want that guy who's going to say, "Don't worry about this. We got this."
And if you can create,
nobody has it. Nobody does have it.
Yeah, no, right. Everybody's freaking out.
Act like you do without saying it.
But if you create something with thousands of viewers, or tens of thousands, or hundreds of thousands of viewers, then the person who gives out the money can say, "Boss, the reason I bought this is because this person has this enormous fan base that we're going to tap into." So it makes his job so much easier, and he can defend himself.
Let's
if
not
it fails.
destroy what it is this guy does naturally. Right. Exactly. Yeah,
You're
this is
on.
somebody who's been waiting forever.
Third row window.
So I think coming to this conference, I think you're a little bit of the panic among the executives about what's happening with TV or what the future with TV is right now. My question to you is, how do you manage that panic and trepidation some of them have regarding their own career?
Well, there's this great thing that they say at Pixar, because you look at, for me, it's like their string of successes is enormous, and like everything
Unmatched.
gets exactly unmatched in history. Just what is it? 15 movies that have been number one, and all $500 million, and all Academy Award winners. And the thing that they say, because everybody goes, "Oh, what's the secret sauce?" Andrew Stanton says, "Be a film goer first, be a filmmaker second." And it's the key to everything for me. It's like
Also
it's
much
like,
easier.
Exactly. But well, because you're always sitting there and sometimes on network things, you get, here's the testing, we're making a show for teenagers, 18 to blah, 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 and whatever. And you just sit there and you go like, okay, well, I don't know what that is. And what they say at Pixar is like, look, just make a movie that you like, make yourself laugh, make yourself cry. If you get bored, kill it, excite yourself. And tell the stories that resonate to you, and then you don't have to worry about anything else. If you and 10 of your friends, you go to a party, you tell a story, and everybody goes, "Oh, that's the greatest story in the world." That's probably a good story to put on the internet or put on whatever, to write a screenplay about and go, because it's going to resonate with a larger audience. It's going to be yours, and it'll be right, and you don't have to worry about all the science, it's just gumming up the works of creativity. That's my thing.
One more question, right in the back there.
I'm just curious, with the creative process, especially on an animation, who has to compromise the most, the writer or the animator?
That's an easy one.
Yeah.
Well, for us, the animator.
Yeah, right, exactly.
For you guys,
by the time it gets,
it's a complicated stew.
It's in movies. It's interesting because I like that it's a collaboration. That it's the writer, it's the performer, and then the animator, and you're all kind of in the same room while you're recording it and trying to figure it out. Because an actor might come up with something really great, like a Robin Williams could do something that completely indicates what the animator is going to do, and then also kind of tells the writer, guides the writer in a certain direction. And there's that fun interplay. I mean, that's the fun part of it. I mean, in TV, obviously, you write it and then you hand it off and then it goes. But for a good performance, really, you want the best of everything.
There's a great episode of The Simpsons where they go to Korea, where you have a room of Korean animators getting whipped and beaten. But the funny thing is that there are Korean animators animating themselves being whipped and beaten.
But actually, I believe there's a story behind that where the Koreans were upset about the scene that they didn't like. They like their jobs and don't see themselves as slaves in a death camp. So they had to actually ship that scene to India. Animated.
That's funny.
Unbelievable.
They refused to. It's a good job.
Because in India, they're like, "Oh, those Koreans are jerks."
Okay, let's take one more question from the girl with the red hair.
Hey, Christy.
That's what happens. You raise your hand for so long, and then it comes to you.
Yeah, I forgot what I wrote down. I'm a sketch comedian. I also write and produce. I host a talk show and stuff.
Cool.
As far as writing goes, I write sometimes, but I feel like I have so many ideas. The ideas come easy. It's the writing part that's hard. Do you have any suggestions? Is there a place? Are there people that you could just funnel ideas to and they love that, or is it ideas have to be transformed into a script, and then you have to do the script and put that into something? I don't really know where to place the ideas, I guess is what I'm asking.
Well, learn, because execution is so important. If you can learn to take a great idea and then execute it and write a really funny, sketch or a bit for your talk show or an episode of a TV show or maybe a film, it's really the execution that's going to make you successful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that happens a lot in variety. Phil and I, we both worked on In Living Color, and I know in the first season when we were doing the pilot, the guys would just come in and go, "Hey, we were at dinner and we were doing these two critics," and they would just start riffing off of each other. And what was it like? "Oh, I can do a great Mike Tyson," and stuff like that. And they would just come in and tell us, "I do this character, and the character kind of goes like this." And you start taking notes of okay, this could work. Now you sit down and shape it, and then that's your sketch. And there's that really fun interplay there. I mean, maybe that's what you're talking about. It's like you need a writing partner because Adam McKay.
Yeah, I was going to say
like-
team up with someone if you can't do it.
Yeah, Will Ferrell and Adam McKay. That's how they. I mean, they met on Saturday Night Live,
yeah.
and then they kept going. And Adam Sandler and what's his
Judd Apatow?
no, but Adam Sandler and his partner in at who is it? But there's the guy who wrote his sketches, and now they make
Tim
the guy
Hurley,
who writes
Tim
the
Hurley?
movies. Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah, exactly. That they met on Saturday Night Live and carried it over into life, and that sometimes winds up being this symbiotic relationship. Maybe that's what you're talking about.
Okay, on that note, we have to close because we've got a little over. Please thank all of my guests. Thank you so much for coming.
And our hostess.
Thank you so very much. I hope you've been inspired.